Hey guys, welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. My name is Salvador Briggman. Hope you're having a killer week thus far. I got a mega episode for you guys today. It's exciting because when I was first getting started in the industry, I was talking about Kickstarter, Indiegogo, crowdfunding, all that kind of stuff. And everyone who knew me was like, Sal, what are you raving on about? Like, what are you talking about with this whole crowdfunding thing? It sounds strange. Like, do people really do that on the internet, right? And lo and behold, now it's like a major thing and a major piece of the economy, in my opinion, particularly when it comes to creating new innovations and new creative works. Same thing goes with what I'm about to mention, which is WeFunder and equity crowdfunding. Guys, this is going to see a massive boom this year. It already is seeing one. And if you are not part of this, you need to listen up. And I'm not even saying from like, I have a reason to sell you on this, right? This is just something that I'm personally excited about. This is basically like a Shark's Tank style fundraising online. People can watch your video and you've never met them before, and they can become an investor in your startup. How cool is that? That's never existed before in human history. This is the first time ever that anyone is able to do this under regulation crowdfunding. And in addition, because of the newer rules, you can actually do a test the waters phase of the campaign before filing any kind of legal documentation with the SEC. And even then, there are so many great and easy templates to be able to do one of these races. You don't even necessarily have to have revenue documented. Like, this is huge. This is major for any entrepreneur out there. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're like, well, Sal, okay, that's great for those big tech companies. Well, that's great for those, you have a physical project or something. What if I have a creative project, right? Well, lo and behold, the reason why I'm sharing this today is that I want to give you a tangible example of a company that's absolutely killing it using WeFunder. And this is Black Sands Entertainment, the most popular independent Black content developers in the nation. And not only that, they've raised $1,015,000 on WeFunder, more than $1 million raised from 2,560 investors. And this is just so they can get a direct line to basically people out there that want to read their creative content, right? They kind of had to build this company out of necessity, and it's been massive. Like, you'll hear about it on today's podcast episode. So this is happening. This is a new thing. Like, I'm not just talking about, this is a major new thing that is happening in the crowdfunding industry that, again, no one is talking about yet. You're hearing it here first. WeFunder is becoming massive. We're seeing so many new campaigns that are being launched. If this is not on your radar, it should be on your radar. And this is a great example of a creative entrepreneur, a creative person who wanted to actually build a creative business out of this, and they're now able to do it with raising a boatload of money on WeFunder. So I don't think this is replacing Kickstarter. I don't think it's replacing Indiegogo. It's a completely different thing, right? But it's something that you can graduate to. Once you have a successful campaign, why not really decide, if you want to hit it big, to build a big company, or to be able to support your creative vision and the stuff that you want to bring into the world? You could do an equity crowdfunding campaign. So this is super exciting. It's coming up right after this. I'm going to introduce you to the individual behind this campaign, but it was also set up courtesy of Fulfillrite. Those guys really do care about you. I've never met someone in business who has this level of care when it comes to the industry and customer service, and I don't say that lightly. So you should definitely check out Fulfillrite if you haven't yet when it comes to order fulfillment and those kinds of things. But again, at the end of this episode, I'm going to be sharing a few more action items, a free course that I have on WeFunder, on equity crowdfunding, and we can get into that. But without further ado, let's get into today's podcast episode. Hey guys, welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. Today we have an equity crowdfunding success story in the house. I'm talking with Manuel, the CEO of Black Sands Entertainment, the most popular independent Black content developers in the nation. And he's come on the show to share a little bit about his WeFunder campaign, what he's doing there, and we'll get into it in just a second. Manuel, welcome to the show.
Hey, what's going on?
Going good, man. Maybe we could get started. You could tell the listeners just a tiny bit about what is Black Sands Entertainment and just kind of give us a bite-sized version there.
Yeah, so Black Sands Entertainment is a comic book publisher. We also do animation, manga, and all those other things. We've been doing it for, a teenage audience, YA audience for about 4 years now. We've grown exponentially in this space, creating a massive market share for our our items, and we focus entirely on history before slavery. We feel like the market is oversaturated with slavery, civil rights, and all this other content for African American youth, right? And we felt that there was a need for, actual African civilizations to be talked about as well. So that's what we've been doing, and the market has responded very well because of that. And now we're raising capital and expanding.
So when it comes to that, what got you kind of excited about starting this? What did that look like before you even decided to take the leap with sort of creating your own publisher, basically?
So what got us started really, it was seeing like talking to other parents and stuff. Typically you make comic books, you don't expect it to really be that influential, right, to other demographics like people who are not comic book fans. But it's been a pretty big thing for us to hear like parents, educators, teachers and stuff talking about our brand and what it means to their kids, right? And that really is what lit the fire under us to really, push this as hard as we possibly can.
And what role do you play in the venture?
Well, I am the writer of the main series, Black Sands, The Seven Kingdoms, and a whole bunch of other series as well. I'm also the marketing guy, so I handle all of the anything that has to do with sales and influence. That is what my job is in this. So, whoever raises the capital, it's usually me.
And when you were getting started there, how did you meet some of your team members who now seem like they're integral part of the company there?
It was like Facebook. Believe it or not, I found my lead artist like 4 years ago on Facebook. He was just bragging to other artists, right? I wasn't looking at a place where you can actually recruit them. I was going to like Facebook groups that, artists are just bragging to other artists, like showing their work, right? It's more for like, just to be a part of a community as opposed to looking for work, right? And we became friends on there. He started working with me, and ever since then, he's been working with us for years now, and now he's art director. His name is David Letterman, our main artist. And then Turnus, I recently met in 2019. He was an animation director, been doing that for dang near 20 years. And he basically was tired of the industry. He wanted to go and make something for his own daughter, right? He left the industry, started working with us in 2020. And now we have animations being developed and everything else in house without having to use an outside studio.
Can you tell us at all about like the success that you're seeing with this new approach and with getting these stories out? How are people responding?
The response is huge. Right now, we're seeing at about $100,000 a month in sales. That's like close to like 6,000, 7,000 copies sold a month. And the only thing that's really stopping us is the simple fact that we don't have that many books, right? We need more books. So we're currently acquiring as many titles as we can from other creators in this space and giving up a lot of like room on our website and our market in order to get other people out there. And our app, which we developed and is launching on May 1st, that is a platform for digital content from our creators. So, we're really trying to, expand as much as possible because we see so much demand out there.
Very cool. Very cool. You're obviously raising capital, and there are a lot of different sites out there to do that. So there's like Kickstarter, Indiegogo, WeFunder is a new thing. What made you guys decide to do a WeFunder instead of go the more traditional comic book kind of route, doing a Kickstarter campaign?
Yeah, so I believe it's just levels to raising capital. So at the end of the day, when you're doing Kickstarter, you're doing a glorified pre-order for future items, right? And the amounts that you're raising, technically you could raise $1 million on Kickstarter, right? But not many people actually do. With us, we had already done a $50,000 round on Kickstarter in 2018, and we're always looking for higher rounds. How do we get to a higher level? We figured that if we were to incentivize people to give us a $500,000, we got to start giving up stock, right? We got to start giving like real tangible ownership in our company in order to get those things. So then we started planning for that. In 2019, we started planning for investment rounds, and we did our first one in February of 2020 and raised $500,000 in about 3 weeks. And ever since then, we've just been going hard since then.
And was that investment round on WeFunder or was that privately?
Yeah. Yes, that investment round was on WeFunder. We had 2 rounds on WeFunder, one in February and one in November.
Okay, and when you were doing this campaign, I mean, WeFunder is a super new thing, obviously. What did that look like when you were preparing for that WeFunder campaign? What were you doing leading up to it?
Yeah, so I was definitely letting my audience know that we were going to do an investment round eventually, like 6 months prior. I was just letting them know, right? Letting those people who had backed us before, who own our products, that hey, you'll be able to buy into our company soon. So just start saving money if you're planning on investing. Start saving now, and getting those intents, getting those calls with like our bigger investors, right? Getting them really ready and feeling like they're a part of this process was very important to launching that first investment round. And I think we raised about $60,000 in the first 24 hours uh,
Jeez,
uh,
congrats.
because of that preparation. So that was what happened in the first investment round. The second one, after we've already had our success, we raised like 240,000 in the first like 48 hours.
That's crazy,
So
man. Yeah.
yeah, so it definitely builds on success. If you hit your milestones, right, and you do exactly what you say you're gonna do, more people show up next time, even stronger.
Now, one of the things, if you're more of a creative type, might be fear of if you bring on investors that they're going to affect your creative vision, right?
Yeah.
For what you're trying to do. What were your thoughts sort of surrounding that?
Well, the great thing about equity crowdfunding on like websites like WeFunder and everything else is the idea that they know for a fact that they have no voting rights. So they have absolutely no voting rights or no hard power to change what you're doing in your company, right? Now, with that being said, giving people soft power is fine, right? Having them poll on what content should be made, having them review certain things, that's fine, right? That's more of a on the margin basis, not too game changing on the business. But because you're not giving up voting rights when you're doing these rounds, because that's how these regulation CF rounds are developed, you really have a lot of control over your product, even if you're giving away equity.
And when it comes to that, do you have to give up a massive chunk of the company, or is that
No.
something that's, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it really depends on your traction, right? So let's say in our first round, we gave up 10% of our company for $500,000, right? And in our second round, we raised another 500,000, but that time we only gave up 5% of our company because we had grown significantly since the round prior. So, our traction dictates what kind of valuation we could have. If we hit our round's goal very fast, then we undervalued our company, right? If we hit our goal over 3 months, then our valuation is basically roughly right, right? And if you don't hit your goal, then you're overvalued yourself. That's basically how it really means.
Yeah, because obviously if it's a super good deal, people are going to jump on it very quickly.
Yeah. So we're probably undervaluing ourselves right now, right? And we'll just adjust in the future. But our momentum is extremely high right now. And that's why, you can end up giving equity out, but not really hurting yourself, right? You're not hurting your voting power, right? Which significantly helps later on when you're like trying to go IPO or something later on.
Yeah. And when it comes to that, obviously, like you said, you're not giving up your voting power. There are a few different instruments, right? Because you could get a convertible note, you could do preferred stock, you could do crowd safe. What instrument did you guys choose to go with?
We would use preferred shares. So yeah, preferred stock. That was our method, you
Okay.
know.
And for those that are interested in investing in like future rounds, what does that mean exactly for the investor?
We actually have another round coming up at the end of May, I believe. And that is going to be for our app. So it's more project based at this point. We felt like we've raised enough capital in our main company to wait a while, right? We have a lot of great things releasing. And we don't want to go and raise money before these things hit and blow up. So we want to wait for those to hit. So right now we have a $3 million round coming at the end of May. That is going to be most likely safe or stock. It really depends on what we're going to figure out for our final terms. But it's a $3 million round for 20% of our app. And the app launches May 1st. So anybody who wants to invest in our company will have plenty of time to actually use the product, right? So it's not an idea, it's a real product. So if they feel like it's scalable, they'll invest.
Yeah. Do you feel like that's important that people kind of have that tangible experience?
I feel it's 100% important to have hit your milestones in the past before you raise capital, right? People need to know that you are a man of your word, or your company is going to do what they say they're going to do with the capital they raise, right? So the fact that I raised this money back in February and now they have an app in their hands, a really good app with multiple creators who signed with our platform, they'll be like, all right, and now we want to scale to this. You'll be like, I think they could do it because they already did what we did last time with a lot less money. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's important.
What do you think that people invested in you? Do you think it's that they really believe in the mission? Do you think it's they see a massive ROI in the future? What do you think is the real key driver to getting people to invest?
Well, I think it's mission and then also results, right? So, mission is probably the most important thing, right? This is something that people are doing for the next generation, right? And you can see that you can actually go to our WeFunder campaign and see thousands of reviews from investors, right, on why they invested. But with that being said, the numbers are there too. Like we are by the numbers, the best independent publisher right now in the nation. We're projected to do $1.5 million in sales this year. And the media is not really covering our company like they
That's
should.
insane. Yeah.
It's like comic books and you're doing 1.5 million and nobody's writing about you. That's weird. So
Yeah.
so
I was gonna
uh,
say
I'm sorry.
I was looking through what people are saying. Like, here's one that says, "I'm a black man with a black son. This is a black-owned company. That's enough reason for me to invest. I believe in the power of black-owned business. I believe in the vision. I've been brought up not knowing anything about what black people have done. What is taught in school only showed us blah blah blah." So like, there's so many people that just resonate with the mission, like you said. I think.
Yeah, it's huge. The mission is the most important, and educators do as well. A lot of educators are on our side, and they hate the fact that there's so much red tape in schools, right? So you have to use such a certain way to sell to schools that they hate it themselves. They're like, man, I wish I could just buy a whole bunch of sets for our class, but you got to do follow certain rules, right? Certain
Yeah.
vendors.
It's really in that infotainment kind of space
Yeah,
because
definitely.
kids aren't gonna read like a boring history book, but then they read something that's more flavorful, fun, and you got comic books and characters, and they get really into it, you know? If you're worried about the fulfillment and shipping part of your Kickstarter campaign when it comes to getting out all those perks and rewards to your backers, rest assured I've put together a complete Kickstarter fulfillment and shipping checklist for you, and it's free. This is sponsored by the folks at Fulfillrite, and they thought that you should have this checklist as part of your arsenal going into a crowdfunding campaign. If you want to get instant access to this checklist and it's free, you can go to fulfillrite.com/checklist. Again, that is fulfillrite.com/checklist. Fulfillrite.com/checklist. Just go to that link and you can download it immediately.
Yeah, the idea is this, you want the kids to read Charlotte's Web, give them Black Sands first. That way they at least want to read something. And then once they're happy about reading, right, then you give them Charlotte's Web. Right? 'Cause, like, they'll get through it then. They're like, okay, I guess I'll get through this as well. You
Yeah,
know?
definitely. On the idea of the investors as well, how much do you say on average people are investing in this? Because like with the Kickstarter, people might be supporting around $50. Like, what do you think
Yeah.
about the investors?
Well, on average so far it's been $300. So $300 per investor. Minimum's 100. But with that being said, we have a large, large pool of people who've done 1,000 or more. You know? So
Yeah, very cool. When you are also doing the promotion and marketing, are you doing anything to strangers or is this mainly your own network? Are you doing anything in the way of like Facebook
I
ads
don't
or
know, because
marketing?
social media is technically strangers, right? It's not like they know you.
Sure,
So
sure.
so we have massive social media campaigns. Like, we are very good at marketing online and getting messages out there to invest. We were averaging about 80 investors a day, right, through our rounds. So you can imagine converting 80 people a day online, right, without paid ads is pretty freaking big. We spent like $800 to raise that $1 million on, like, $800 in ads. You
Insane.
know, so
Yeah.
so we didn't spend any money on ads. It was all organic, right? And like I said, no media coverage. So it was really like really organic, and that's good. TikTok's been really great to me lately.
That's another big one.
We've
Yeah.
grown exponentially on that platform.
How do you think this compares with doing more of a traditional raise? Because now you have, 2,500 plus people who are a part of your community and are bought in and, are cheering you on. How do you think this compares with like more of a traditional angel round?
Well, one thing is it's sustainable support. So these are customers as well, right? They're gonna buy stuff. They're gonna go and get stuff for friends or get their friends to get involved, right? And they don't take as much power away. They're not interested in power, right? They're interested in success. So they have a very different metric for what is considered successful to a traditional angel investor or VC, right? VC is a very bottom line. Sometimes it can be cutthroat, right? Do things against the interests of the company, right? Because it's better for their portfolio or something like that.
Mm,
So, that's very important. If you can raise through the crowd, it's almost always better. The thing is, though, a lot of people just don't have things that are viable for the crowd. They can't convince a whole bunch of people to invest $100. They might be able to convince one person to invest 500,000. You know what I mean?
mhm, mhm. Yeah, so I think a big part of it is that you guys have a bit of a track record there, obviously,
Yeah.
and people have experienced the products. Like you said, with the upcoming app, they also have a chance to experience that before you kind of make that pitch there.
Yeah, that's the greatest thing, right? It's like if you don't think that this could be the next big, webtoons platform, then don't invest. Like, don't even try to give them the hoopla about we're building Black Wall Street or we're gonna make a whole bunch of millionaires out of you guys. You just simply say, download the app. If you love it and you think that this could really scale with more money, invest. Right? It's like that's it. If you don't believe that, don't invest. And I think that more blunt approach to what the product is and just investing in general really motivates black consumers, which technically do get scammed a lot. A lot of people use emotional like marketing on black consumers, right? And so they're weary of like certain phrases and certain like ideas.
Mhm.
So when you say straight up, download the app. If you think it's going to make it to this amount of income one day, right? Then it's a great investment.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. When it comes to your network and you were introducing this campaign to them, was there any education that you had to do in the way of like how WeFunder works or how this whole equity crowdfunding thing works, or were they pretty just ready to hop on?
Absolutely. In fact, you got to educate people on Kickstarter, right? So
Yeah.
even with Kickstarter, you got to teach them how it works. For instance, a lot of people, and this is the thing I did with Kickstarter was a lot of people they don't understand that at Kickstarter, your money's taken out at the end of the campaign. So when they go to Kickstarter for the first time, right? A lot of people, the first time they ever go to Kickstarter is to support a brand they actually, they met. They'll wait until they have the money, right? If they're getting paid next Friday, they'll wait for that, right? Before they back the campaign. Where the culture of Kickstarter is if you're planning on backing it any time before it closes, you back day one,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? To get that traction. Right? And if you don't educate people on that, you can really mess up your momentum early,
Hmm.
right? And
Hmm.
so you got to give them an understanding. You got to constantly let them know, right? Over and over again that you will be charged at the end of the campaign if we are successful.
Yeah.
But if we don't hit our goal, you're not going to be charged anything. So please back on the first day in order to get this momentum.
Yeah. And the same is
People
true
really
of WeFunder,
underestimate
I imagine.
education. Yeah.
Yeah, and the same kind of process I assume also goes into the WeFunder and like educating there and such.
Yeah, we got to give them information like if you invest early, like for me it's like this. It's different with Kickstarter, right? So I say what's different between WeFunder and Kickstarter? The idea is they're going to take your money immediately. But you can give money however you want in different methods. It doesn't matter, right? ACH, a lot of different ways because it's investing. But the bottom line is once we hit that maximum goal, it's over.
Mhm. Mhm.
There ain't no stretch goals. There ain't ain't nothing else after that. So you better invest early because if you invest after the goals reached, is a highly likely chance that you're going to get refunded and you're not going to get stock in our company.
Yeah.
It's an extremely high chance. We've gone hundreds of thousands of dollars over our goal because we couldn't close the campaign.
Mhm.
Because the SEC says campaigns can't close for 6 days after you put the notice in. So you put the notice in 6 days later, you can close the campaign. So if I hit my max goal of 535, 6 more days,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? People are investing.
Yeah, definitely. There's that urgency for sure. To me, this is incredible the level of access that you now have, right? Because otherwise you'd have to convince a bunch of people to really believe in the brand, but you already just kind of tapped into your community. Do you think this is going to expand capital for other minority groups as well, equity crowdfunding?
Well, equity crowdfunding should be used by everybody who's already done crowdfunding in general, right? To me, I like if you're consistently capable of raising X amount of money on Kickstarter, why are you trying to do the same thing over and over again? I feel like Kickstarter is the first step to a successful company's growth, right? And then you just got to move forward. You got to move on past that. You can't just live on Kickstarter for the rest of your life. But a lot of people are content with just making a living for themselves. You
Hmm.
know, so that's some of the big factors of why people don't use equity crowdfunding. The second you go to equity crowdfunding, you're planning on making millions of dollars. There's no point. Like you're not going there in order to, figure out how to make a small business, right? You're
You're
going
gonna blow
you're
it up.
going there
Yeah.
'cause yeah, so the motivation has to be there, right? But if the motivation is there to really scale rapidly, right, and take on investors and have them rely on your moves, then equity crowdfunding should be used. I use it all the time, and more importantly, creators on my platform who I think are ready for investment, I mentor them to get them prepared for their investment rounds.
When was the decision point where you decided that you're gonna go from just being an individual creator to really trying to build a big company? Like, what made you decide to make that push and that decision?
I think it's just the numbers were right. Like for instance, every time a customer comes to my store, about 70% of the time, maybe even higher than that, but about 70% of the time they buy every single book I have.
Wow. Yeah.
Right? So that's a problem because if I don't have new books, right, my customers, they got nothing left to buy.
Mhm, mhm,
So what I start doing is I start hunting for books. I'm like, somebody has to have books that they want to sell in our store. And we start testing that out. And, I get a new book on there and I'll sell 200, 300 copies of that, right, from somebody else. I'll get 50% commission off of that book, right? And more importantly, this person sold hundreds of copies in like a week or 2 weeks, right? When it usually takes them a couple of months to do that. You know what
mhm,
I'm saying? And that idea of being a kingmaker in this space right now, I realize that is the potential of our company, and that's why we made this platform for digital content for webtoons,
mhm.
and we also have our store, our actual store on Shopify that it just moves massive amount of product every month. So there's no reason why we shouldn't take that space, right, as a major publisher in this thing. Because even if you're getting a publishing deal with Dark Horse, they can't guarantee that you'll be placed in 200 stores. They just can't guarantee that, right? The store owners have to actually buy the comic books, and it's non-refundable. So they're very hesitant on buying comic books they feel might not sell in their store.
Mhm, mhm.
Ours has a capacity of at least 100 to 200 comic book shops combined, right?
And it's all
And
virtual, yeah. It's all
yeah, it's
online.
all yeah, they just buy directly from our website. We send physical books to them, right? So they're buying massive amounts of like books from us. And the important thing is that, our customer base is very specific. It's super niche. So if you're on my store, it's most likely because I thought your book would sell directly to my consumers without having to market you,
Yeah.
right?
And you can instantly see as well which ones are winners and which ones are kinda struggling just from the sales
Yeah.
data, yeah.
Yeah, and once that happens, we scale them up ourselves. We don't wait for them to see if they can afford it. We just give them a better deal. We say, "Hey, we'll buy your books directly from China or whatever, right? So we can get a nice print cost, right? And we'll give you X amount of the sales, period, right?" And they'll be like, "No problem," because they don't have to pay no more for upfront, right? For the
Mhm.
books. And we're making a little bit more in profit, but the main thing is we have another item that's moving quickly on our store. We just keep adding, adding, adding more items.
You really do have an entrepreneurial mindset, whereas I think a lot of creators kind of struggle with that business side of the equation. Is that something that you've just kind of always been one of your aptitudes, or have you consciously taken time to learn the business side?
Well, I'm an economist, so that's what I went to school for and everything else. I really want to be a politician, right? So I was like, oh, I'm gonna be an economist. That way, I can go right in there and argue my cases and why policy should be done, right? So what happened was, right, as I look at business side of this whole thing, I'm looking at all these things about demand, who's my core customer, what are they supplying, what's the supply out there for the product, right? What's the total reachable audience, right? Right? People think that I'm in the comic book industry, but I'm not. You know,
Yeah.
you You said it best, infotainment, right? It's like that's the market I'm in. It's not the comic book industry. I don't sell in a single comic book shop in the United States, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But I sold
that's
100,000 units.
it's so interesting. You use the comic book as a vehicle for creating impact, it seems.
That's it. That's it. It's just a medium for how you deliver the content. So is anime. So is the app. Right. It's just a medium.
Mhm, mhm, and then obviously people that becomes part of someone's childhood and becomes part of their belief system and the stories that they care about and who they look up to and who they wanna become. So it's
Yep.
really a powerful way to impact kids, I think.
Oh, it's massive, man. Especially young black kids because they just don't have them.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
like they just simply don't have them. We all learn about Julius Caesar because it motivates a whole generation of kids, right? To make something of themselves, even if they're not from a privileged background. They
Mhm,
love emphasizing that Julius Caesar was basically a disgrace. He had a disgraced family, and he had to become a soldier and work his way up the ranks to become, the emperor. Right? It's a very straight up like anybody can make it type story,
mhm.
right? And that's important for young kids to understand that. But black kids need to have that story as well.
Did you have any role models that you looked up to in the comic book space when you were younger? Or any kind of people like that that kind of got you excited about pursuing higher levels of ambition there?
In all honesty, it wasn't too many people that I looked up to as far as like what they were doing, but some things did trigger me as far as like the other way around. So I'm a huge fan of Naruto, right? I love Naruto series, the anime.
Mhm.
The creator of Naruto is worth $40 million today. He's been making Naruto, writing Naruto, and drawing Naruto for 20 years. All right, he created everything for it. He's worth $40 million today. The Naruto brand is worth 15 billion. So
Wow.
he's not even worth 1% or even half a percent of his actual brand that he created, right? I don't know about you, but that right there tells me that I'm supposed to be doing business a certain way. And if I could pull it off, right? I'll be able to really reap the benefits of my production instead of somebody else making all the money off of my brand. You know. Now think about it this way too. He's worth 40 million. That's not what they gave him for that. That's him like going to like events as a speaker and stuff like that, right? He probably gets paid like a couple 100,000 every time he talks. You know what I'm saying? The reality is he didn't really make that much money off of Naruto like he should have because he didn't have the means to make the product. He couldn't make the anime, right? He couldn't distribute his own books, so he had to get a traditional publisher for that. He couldn't make the video games, which are out now, because he couldn't afford to pay for the video games. All these things we're covering on the early level. These are the hardest things, making the first product,
Yeah.
making the first season of Naruto. The other seasons pay for themselves because everybody wants them at that point. But the first season, you got to pay for it yourself. You have to pay for it, and you give up all your power on that first transaction. So this is why it's important what we're doing right now, especially since Hollywood has a really bad track record on making anything about African civilizations. Like they haven't done it in 50 years. So the idea that I would get that deal when nobody got that deal in 50 years is ridiculous.
Yeah, I think just the level of value that that person created versus what they were able to keep as well holds them back from even bigger ways they could have impacted their fan base. Had they had more money and more resources, they could have maybe even come out with a lot of cooler stuff, right? But because
Yeah,
they're kind of
100%.
working with one hand tied behind their back and they have to deal with other people who own their work, it's more difficult.
100%. It's kingmaker power, right? If you have enough influence and capital, you can make things happen for people who deserve it, right? You're like, hey, this is a really dope brand. Let's make this do a show. You can just do it instead of having to worry about if a Hollywood producer is going to greenlight this or not. You can just straight up do it. Tyler
Kingmaker,
Perry
love
style.
that. Yeah. Yeah, that's a great, you got to coin that phrase there, trademark that. Cool, man. Well, this is a lot of really great stuff. I do want to give you a second. If people are interested in investing or learning more about your next round, where can they learn more about that?
Well, the best way is to join our Patreon community. It's a subscription service. We have a Patreon at patreon.com/blacksands. We have like 1,600 people in there right now who are subscribers. It's a huge community. And we talk about investment. Half of them are investors already. They own stock already.
Wow.
but they
Wow.
continually like support our company anyway. And it's just a huge community. If you ever want to talk to other investors about what the heck they feel about what's been going on, they're very good conversations. Also, download the app. May 1st, it'll come out. It's called BSP Comics or Black Sands Publishing on Apple or Droid. It launches on Apple May 1st. So you'll actually be able to figure out exactly what you're investing in. And our investment round will happen at the end of May, most likely. We're just going through the final approval process for exactly where we're going to be raising that capital.
That's so cool. I love the way that you're using Kickstarter, Patreon, equity crowdfunding. You're using every tool in the toolbox here, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, our patron community is huge too. We're like in the top 1% worldwide. We do about 21,000 a month, just donations.
Congratulations. Yeah, that's awesome. Cool, man. Well, I really appreciate your time, and thank you for sharing some of your advice and tips for other people out there. I'm going to leave the podcast sort of on the ending note here, just asking you one question, which is, if you could either share a final tip, a word of encouragement, or something that you wish you knew when you're just getting started that can maybe get people taking some action here with getting their project off the ground.
Absolutely. 1% rule. Focus on 1%. I think there's a huge problem right now with people always trying to be as broad as these major companies when they've already succeeded, right? Facebook is broad because they already succeeded. When they first started, they only dealt with colleges and very few amount of colleges, right? It's like they were very, very, very narrow in their marketing attempts. And almost all major companies start off at an extremely narrow marketing audience. So with us, we focus on African American parents and their kids. That's what we do. That's our narrow path. A 1% rule. I think everybody should have a 1% audience that they're focusing on, that they could be an influencer of, they could be a leader of, and then they'll buy your product. No matter what kind of product it is, they assume that you made it exclusively for them, which will make them super supporters. We want super supporters at the beginning. We can go broad once we're successful.
Well said. Thank you for coming on the show. Really appreciate it, and good luck with your upcoming campaign.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. My name is Sal, and I kind of want to just end this episode by saying thank you, because I think since the early days of crowdfunding, not only have I grown a lot, but the audience has also grown with me. And it's such a huge privilege, I think, to be able to continue to educate in this industry. And I think this is a milestone. I think this is a big point in my life where Kickstarter and Indiegogo are here to stay, and they're going to continue to grow, and more people. I'm never going to stop educating on that and helping people in my mastermind group, etc., when it comes to that, or coaching, or helping people even individually with campaigns. Like, I do all that stuff, but I love creating new content, new books, like all that stuff. But to me, the next big thing is WeFunder. The next big thing is Start Engine, equity crowdfunding, right? And I think this is just going to boggle your mind, the way this is going to grow in the next year or two. It's going to be huge, guys. It's going to be massive. And if you want to kind of get an early start, or you want to get kind of on that tidal wave before it begins to crest, go and check it out now. I really think it's really ripe for disruption. So much cool stuff is happening you might not even be aware of on WeFunder. So I have a great course on this. I'll link you right now. It's called crowdcrux.com/equity course. That is crowdcrux.com/equity course. You go there, you can learn a little bit more about kind of what this whole regulation crowdfunding business is, what equity crowdfunding is. And I'm telling you, it's way more complicated than it sounds. All these finance people, all these people that are heavily involved in accounting and stuff, they make it way more complicated than it needs to be. The bare bones, if you will, or the biggest takeaway is that you can now do a test the waters campaign using WeFunder or Start Engine or these other companies. You can actually register non-binding indications of interest from investors. You can go live using a pre-launch mechanism, and you can get a bunch of funding with a WeFunder campaign. It is so cool, man. I can't wait for you to learn a little bit more about it. I also have a great book out there, Equity Crowdfunding Explained. You can check out at crowdcrux.com/equity audio. That's crowdcrux.com/equity audio. That will go even more in depth into this. but this is just the start. Like it's going to be growing so much. I can already tell just looking at the stats and the metrics, and I'm excited for you to be a part of it if you want to. If you would be interested in getting some help when it comes to the marketing side, you can always reach out to me. Just go to my website, crowdcrux.com. You can reach out to me there, doing some really cool stuff behind the scenes that I can't yet announce, but soon you guys will know about it. I think you'll be really blown away by that too. So anyway, thank you so much for following me for this length of time. Really appreciate it. I hope it's always been valuable for you, and I hope you have a good rest of your week, and I'll talk to you next time.